This video is part of a series on experiences of the Enneagram from the 27 subtypes. I'm aiming to interview people of each subtype, so you get to hear and experience what those different voices and life experiences sound like. I hope you enjoy. Hi, Roxy. Thank you for taking the time to share with us today. Can you just share with us the country that you live in, your Enneagram type, subtype, and instinctual sequence?
Yes. So I'm in New Zealand, and I am a social 4, and I'm self-pres repressed.
Thank you, Roxy. So when it comes to the Enneagram, when did you first hear about it?
And so sometime in the early 2000s, I went on a day-long workshop, and after I had filled in a very long form, ticking boxes, well, filling in the little squares of like a lot like me and not much like me, so finding the spot that I felt, so to about 200 different questions, and then I was given a breakdown of this is where you scored on all of the different types, and that gave me my type.
Okay, thank you, Roxy. So that was back in around 2000, so about 23 years ago.
Yeah, a while ago.
Okay, so what has been your experience with the Enneagram over those years?
So when I first came across it, I didn't know anything about subtypes, but I did feel like that it said I was at 4, and I really felt like almost all of the description of the 4 really fit for me. And there were some parts of it that I felt I wasn't quite able to own. I don't know if they were not true, but I couldn't see that in me in any case. And it it kind of named some things that I had experienced and normalized them for me, but it didn't come with any sense of where to from here. And I was given, after the workshop, I was given a little Enneagram book, a thin one, and it had some exercises that you could do. And I did some of them because I'm quite enjoy doing exercises about self-awareness. And but again, I felt like I don't really know where this goes next. And then it wasn't until I listened to a podcast where there was someone who was describing the 27 subtypes, and when I heard that, it was like it was like an illuminating moment, I suppose, where I was like, oh, there's so much more to this, and that makes so much more sense. And I just wanted to find out more about it. So that's when I started exploring more.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. And just in terms of time, when did the subtype piece come into your life, like time-wise?
Yeah, let me think. It oh gosh, it was maybe mid mid around mid 2015, around there, 2015,
Okay.
2016, something like that. So not very long ago, but yeah.
Where did you first hear about the subtypes? Was it through a particular Enneagram teacher or?
Yeah, so the person who was doing on the podcast had been studying with Beatrice Chestnut, and
Okay.
and she recommended the Complete Enneagram, so Beatrice's book, and so I got the book, and then I started exploring CP Enneagram, and that's when I decided there's a lot in here that is very exciting for me, in my personal growth for myself and in my role, wanting to help other people grow as well. So I was yeah, started exploring and learning more.
Brilliant. Thanks, Roxy. So with regards to the Enneagram, are there any specific areas where you have found it to be the most helpful in your life?
I think in terms of self-understanding, first of all, definitely, the subtype part has been really helpful. and also a sense of clarity around what is it that I need to work on, and how is envy particularly showing up in my life. And then also in my relationships, and helping me to understand the impact that I'm likely to have on other people, because of the things that I pay attention to and don't pay attention to, and also helping to understand what's going on for other people because of the things that they bring and pay attention to and don't. So
Sure.
those probably like my self-understanding and my own personal growth path, and also my relationships, and how to maneuver and move more smoothly through those, and with greater compassion and understanding. It's been really helpful for that.
Brilliant. Yeah, so what I heard there was like three key areas: the self-awareness piece, and the internal growth that comes as a result from the self-awareness, and also your relationships and navigating those. And I'm guessing would that be professionally and personally, or any relationships?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's giving you more understanding and more allowed for more compassion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience with the Enneagram?
I think it's probably also, it's opened me up into a community of people that I wouldn't necessarily have, like a breadth of community that I wouldn't have had. And that it's really good to be on that kind of self-learning and relationship learning journey with other people, because otherwise it's easy to lose your way, or to get discouraged, I think, and kind of not know whether what you're experiencing is normal, or other fours feel like this, or other people have this kind of experience. And so it's just nice to have that community. So that's been another piece that has been there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Roxy. That sounds like it's been like really enriching for you. So when it came to discovering your Enneagram type, you mentioned that back in 2000 you did like an online test.
Paper back in that day.
Oh,
Back in the day.
a paper one.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your test result back then?
So I scored high on the 4.
Okay.
Which is they said this is your type. So it was reasonably clear that I was a 4. But I also had pretty high scores on 9 and 7 as well. I think it was
Okay.
9. Yeah.
Okay. So when the results came through with 4 being at the top, and someone told you, oh, you came out as a 4, therefore you are a 4 because the test says you are a 4, or did they give anything else to that?
No, it wasn't. So it really was like doing a Myers-Briggs thing at that point. It was like, here you are, you're an INFP, and this is what that means. And it was like, here you are, you're a 4, and this is what that means.
Okay. So when you received that information via the test, and that's what they said, oh, the test result came out on top, so therefore the test is 100% correct. You are a 4. How did you kind of take on the 4? Did you live as a 4? Did you think that you might have been another type, even though the test said that you were a 4 for a while?
No, I felt like it totally nailed me. It was,
Right.
and
Okay.
I had that kind of like, um, that same kind of like, oh my God, has someone been reading my diary kind of feeling, that it was like, this is, no one else should know this about me.
Okay.
So I did have that sense of, oh, that really is very me. Well, I think the social 4 is quite typical of like the 4 description. It fits.
Yeah. So years later, when the subtype piece came into your life, what was your experience with that kind of, understanding of the subtypes? How did that help?
Yeah. So I think because I had already identified quite well with the 4 description, the social 4 piece for me added a sense of, oh, okay, so I see how I use sadness. I see how I have used sadness as a way of getting people on side for me, and recognizing that as kind of like a significant piece of my personality. And I think also it helped me to recognize that there's a like a dark side to envy, which is almost cruel, and that I think that comes out more in the sexual four, because there's the competition piece, and they're kind of like the competitive aspect of it is like, I want to win and I want you to lose. And for me as a social four, there's always there's been a really uncomfortable sense of I want to experience the thing that someone else has, or I see the lack, and I want what I feel is missing. And in the wanting what's missing, it's almost like I don't want the other person to have it. So it feels like there's like an inbuilt meanness to the four personality, which it really helped me to see that. And I mean, it's very uncomfortable and I don't like it, but it's much easier to be able to see it and recognize it and own it than it is to try and pretend that it's not there. That feels better to me, more authentic, which would be important.
Sure, yeah, for a four, yeah. So what have you like since discovering that piece, what have you done to kind of like what have you found helpful to work on that piece?
Yeah, great question. I think the thing that has most helped me in my growth path in the last 3 or 4 years has been learning to be way more self-compassionate.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
actually to learn self-compassion as a first practice, rather than trying to be more compassionate, like working to be more compassionate to other people without having any real sense of compassion for myself. And that's been a really big shift, and still a work in progress learning. So, but that's been for me.
Yeah, thank you, Roxy. So, as you've been working on like the self-compassion piece, has that produced more compassion as a sort of organically byproduct of being more self-compassionate for yourself? You've then been able to be more compassionate for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about being a social four that other people might find helpful to hear about?
I think there's somewhere there's a description of the social fours using sadness and suffering as a way to seduce. And I when I came across that, I found that a little bit hard to see. It's like, how does that even work? Because when I'm around people who are sad, I don't often feel seduced by their sadness. But I think the way that the thing that I realized, and I think the way that I have used it, is that if I share my pain, it opens a space where I'm being vulnerable, and often that means that people will come and care because of my vulnerability. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Inside Out, the
Not
Disney
yet. I
movie.
want to.
Oh, you need to see it. Anyway, in that movie, there's a memory that gets revisited, and Joy remembers it as a wonderful memory. And then as she revisits it, she realizes, like, this was a wonderful memory because when I was sad, people came and cared for me. And then the sadness, which Joy has been trying to push away, sadness is allowed to come and be present in the personality, because it's actually the way that people connect in moments of sadness that brings connection and belonging. And I value connection more highly than anything else. As a social four, connection is the thing that I value. And it took me a long time to recognize that. Like, I wanted other values to be top, but but it became clear in over time that actually I will lose my inner connection and my sense of authenticity in order to belong to the group or to belong in the relationship. I think probably because my sexual instinct is second. I do group and relationship as the places where I want to belong and connect, and so connection and belonging are really important. And sadness is one of the ways that I can manufacture connection and belonging, which, you know, when I say it like that sounds a bit sad. but you know, that was how I functioned. And it's always painful to lose that sense of inner connection, and so then there's more sadness, and so it becomes a vicious cycle. It's like I want to belong, and in order to belong I have to give up being truly myself, and so then there's more pain, and and so it goes.
Okay, so I've heard it said that with the subtype, with the dominant subtype, there's just like a relentless drive for it to get what it's trying to get, but it never gets there. It's never able to achieve what it's relentlessly always trying to achieve.
Right.
So the connection piece has been important for you in terms of like being the social four with the group, and your sexual instinct in second place, with presumably with one-to-one relationships or those closer to you perhaps. How has that connection, that desire for connection, kind of matured or grown since you've discovered it, in terms of, you know, the group and with yourself?
So I think a big piece of that like drive, the constant drive to get what you can never get, there's a part of that is about trust, that I want to belong and be connected, but I don't trust that I'll be allowed to belong as myself. And so it's almost like the more I can learn to trust and not doubt that I can be myself and be okay, then the less I feel the drive to abandon myself in order to belong into the group or in a relationship. And one of the things that's really helped me in that space, when I start to feel like there's any place where I'm being overly anxious and adjusting too much to be connected, has been to do some self-soothing, like trauma therapy, self-soothing stuff, which is like, I'm okay, and I might have to do that for a while before I actually feel okay. But that embodied tender touch and the calming, soothing, and the repeating that I'm okay, it really has made a difference. It has helped.
That's lovely to hear. And just for clarification, the self-soothing piece, has that helped with the self-trust, like you can show up as yourself in these various places?
Yeah. And anytime I am not being compassionate, or I catch myself being stuck somehow, then I can use that, and that does shift things for me.
Okay. And is there like a typical place where you kind of noticed that you feel stuck? Are there, like, you know, the usual suspects, if that makes sense?
Probably the most often place where I get stuck is in my inner monologue.
Okay.
And that often is a replay of sometimes classic blooper reels, and sometimes, just the most recent, and sometimes it's just a checking over, was that okay, was that okay, was that okay. And when I'm doing that, I'm usually looking for where did I stuff up, or where could I have done that better, or do I measure up somehow. And usually I'm looking for where did I miss,
Okay.
what was missing in me in that situation, or in that interaction, or in what I said or wrote.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, is that related to that, like the missing, what's missing, the what's missing agenda of the type 4?
Yeah. It's always what's missing in me when I'm doing that. It's not what was missing in what someone else did.
Yeah.
It's almost always what's missing in me.
Yeah, and when you've kind of caught yourself or became aware and noticed yourself, I'm doing this thing again. What have you helped to kind of bring you out of it? Is it the self-soothing
Yeah,
piece?
that's where the self-soothing helps. Yeah. And it's not, and it was initially, it was kind of like, can I catch myself doing it? But the catching myself doing it was also pretty critical and unkind. So I have to catch myself and soothe, rather than catch myself and scold.
Okay, because I know that the 4 has the arrow to 1, so I wonder if the
Mhm.
self-critical piece is related to that arrow movement as well,
Yeah, I
potentially.
suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Roxy. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience of being a social 4 that you'd like to share?
I don't know if this is a particular for social fours, but I know that when I was initially looking at how do I start doing some personality deconstructing stuff. Actually, this is the advice given for beginning to deconstruct a personality is like, get feedback, and in an open way, and do things differently, because personality always wants to do everything the same way. But as a social 4, as a 4, doing things differently means do the same thing more than once, which took me a while to work out. So, maybe there are much smarter 4s out there who got it faster than I did. But everything I do, I want to do it like creatively and differently. And yeah, so the challenge for me to do things differently is actually just do the same thing more than once. Do the same thing a lot, because that's
Mm,
hard. It's boring. I don't want to. So yeah, that.
okay. And I wonder if that's also related as well to the self-preservation repression,
Could
that kind
be.
of lack of routine. So there's like a double dose of, I need to do things differently each time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Routine, deadly dull.
Thank you for sharing, Roxy. In terms of deconstructing a personality, for anybody that hears that and thinks deconstructing personality, like, um, what could you share about kind of maybe sort of normalizing it without, if anyone's kind of unfamiliar with that term?
Yeah, sure. I guess the personality is the mask of the true self, or the whole self. So so once I recognized, okay, so I show up in the world as a social 4, but that's because I'm hiding a whole bunch of things that I don't want the world to see, because I don't trust the world with. And so if I want to show up more wholly, truly as myself, then I need to start deconstructing the mask. I need to learn how to live without the mask. And so the kind of shaking its hold, or making enough space between me and the way my personality wants to protect me from life and pain, shaking that loose is a positive step towards growth.
Thanks for sharing that, Roxy. So when it comes to deconstructing a personality, because really the personality, as you've said, is a mask. It's masking our true self, or our whole self. I know that you're also a practicing Christian. How have you found that terminology? How have you kind of journeyed that through with your Christian faith?
Mm. Um, it's been a real struggle, actually, honestly. Um, and my Christian and my faith itself, because I became a Christian when I was in my late teens, from like nothing, like no connection with a Christian believing anything. So there was this huge learning journey of the whole language of faith and the whole that kind of the whole building of faith, which I then went through a significant faith reconstruction when I went to study theology at university. So that kind of underwent a major remake. I don't know if it was a renovation. It was more like a demolition and then a rebuild as I studied theology. And then the personality piece, I've really struggled to figure out, where does that land in terms of what I believe about what it means to be a child of God and made in God's image, and where does sin fit in that, and redemption, and what does it, how is the born again piece, what does that mean? And I did find it really helpful that Paul talks about how I don't do the thing I want to do, but the thing I don't want to do is what I do, and that helped me recognize, okay, so this is something that is actually is in the tradition, but just isn't very much talked about, because the idea that I was told was that when you repent and believe, and I went through the whole give your life to Jesus thing, and say this prayer, then you're a new creation, and kind of Jesus has done it all for you, and now all you have to do is live better, and keep coming to church. And it's like, well, that has not worked. there has to be more to that, and so kind of pulling all of those pieces apart and checking to see, well, where how does growth happen, and what is the part that grace has to play in all of this, and also what is it that I'm responsible for, rather than, I think what I started out with was like, please God take this away, or please God change this, but I didn't understand that actually there's significant, it's a partnership, right? We're both in the yoke together, we're both moving this train together, and so it's not that I don't have my own parts to do in the process of growing into fullness of life. So the Enneagram has really helped me identify the practical pieces of what does it mean to live into the fullness of being human. And I think also the understanding that a human being, fully alive, fully awake, fully present, is a glorious thing. And I think that was a really helpful piece to add in to the whole mix for me.
So Roxy, as a Christian and as someone that's been working with the Enneagram now for over 20 years, and someone that sees the value of it, how would you kind of what could you share to other Christians that might be watching this video who might be questioning whether the Enneagram is spiritually safe? Or
There's something about the there's something about the wisdom in the Enneagram that connects with the call into fullness of life, that offers a really clear path into growth. And I haven't found anything in there that doesn't resonate with my reading of scripture and the invitation of Jesus to fullness of life, that it fits.
thank you, Roxy. That's lovely for you to have shared that with us. I know that you work with the Enneagram professionally. Can you share a little bit about what it is that you do, where people can find more about your work and what you have to offer?
Yeah, so I am a spiritual director, and I'm just starting to do some workshops for small groups and some one-on-one Enneagram conversations. I also am a minister of a Presbyterian church, so I have a small group that I run, that I provide resources for, which sometimes have an Enneagram stuff to them, but mostly it's about faith journeying. And those are WordPress pages. So I have one for my congregation and one for my small group. And otherwise, you can, Google knows where to find me.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Roxy. So I'm gonna write your name and a place where people can find out more about you in the description box below this video if anybody would like to get in touch and have a conversation with you. Is there anything else you'd like to share about the Enneagram, or anything else you'd like to share with us before closing?
I think one of the questions that you indicated that you would be interested around, and I don't know if I missed it when you asked me, so maybe I did. But what it would be useful for other people to know about fours. I think if you're in a relationship with a four, one of the things that would be very much appreciated would be if there was a sense of a shared responsibility for the well-being of the connection in the relationship. I think fours often feel like we're the ones who say, hey, something's not right between us, what's going on? I know I often say that, and I often know exactly what's going on. But I have a friend who says, I can feel that there's a disturbance in the force, but I have no idea why. And I don't know if it's you, I don't know if it's me, I don't know if it's something else entirely. But if you're in a relationship with a four and you're the one who brings it up, rather than waiting or saying nothing or hoping it goes away, that would make your four very happy.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Roxy. That's going to be really helpful for anyone that's watching that's in a relationship with a four. So, they can have more of an insight into how they can love their four better and enhance the relationship.
Nice.
Is there anything else you'd like to share before closing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
Roxy, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been so insightful to hear all that you've shared with us. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.